Main speaker up. Today we're having a craft talk by our newest member of the board and our new community services chair. Aaron, over to you.
Thank you. And Nancy, if you would do the same thing that we just did with Tom, I've got a little slideshow to go through.
Wonderful.
I can't guarantee this speech will be like a woman's skirt, but I'll try my best.
Yeah, that's a hard one to top. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. You are now the host.
Okay. Okay. So look at the title of this. It's called Craft Talk. At least we know why we're here. So thank you, Nancy, and thanks to everyone for welcoming me into the club. It's been a wonderful experience so far. Just so many great and positive men and women that really care about the community. I'm going to talk a lot today about myself and about the Y. You know, I work for the Y, and I have for 23 years. So I guess what they say is, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So in that case, I've had a vacation for 23 years. So I can appreciate that. So thanks to Dwight for that wonderful picture he snuck of me in a Korean restaurant. If he's in the meeting today, that's the only one where I didn't get a chance to pose. I guess I couldn't start today without talking a little bit about the legacy of the Y, and the Westwood Village Rotary Club has been so illustrious, I guess you can say. I remember sitting next to Jim Collins, who the YMCA here is named after, at one of our lunches, which seems like a lifetime ago. And he mentioned he joined the Rotary the same year he joined the board of the Y. And wow, did that turn out great. So moving on, in the beginning, so I put together pretty much a picture show for everybody, which my kindergartner loved last night because she didn't have to read. So the picture on the left, that's me and my twin sister. That's right, I'm a twin. I beat her out by 2 minutes. You know, you may be able to tell she was severely handicapped at birth, and of course still is. She still lives back in Colorado, which taught me a lot of empathy and patience over the years. And that's me on the right, just bracing for the mayhem to come. My parents are to the bottom right. They were transplants from Milwaukee in 1977. They moved out to Colorado, and you know, they said, the first thing they said, if we're going to live in Colorado, we're going to live in the mountains. So that's how I grew up, with one leg shorter than the other from standing on all those high peaks out there. That's me in the top right, next to an old picture of my father. So fashion statements left and right. My dad forced me to get a flat top haircut so I could look like Johnny Unitas and Bart Starr. And I could squeeze out some shaved lines and lightning bolts in my head just to make it right. But I could say, at least I didn't have to dress like him at that age. When I was a kid, I lettered in sports. And that was really the start of my coaching career. The first basketball coaching job I got was as an 8th grader. I coached 7th graders, and I found quickly after seeing my skill and relative athleticism in high school sports that my real passion was coaching. I ended up at CU Boulder, right up the road. I knew from age 5 that that's where I wanted to go to school. Walking around that stadium there in a 3-foot snowstorm with moon boots and frozen toes, and I knew I still wanted to go there. So I knew it was right. When it was time to go to school, I knew it was a good excuse for me to get away from some of the knuckleheads I went to high school with. You know, when high school ended, these guys are into drugs and getting evicted from their apartments and arrested and all sorts of things. So it was really a great move for me to kind of get away from that and find some positive influences around me. So there's a saying in the Y movement that everybody has their college Y. So of course I showed up at our independent Y in Boulder, Colorado, and started working. I think I worked for 3 months before they even cut me a paycheck, which helps you learn the value of volunteerism, I guess. I held just about every job that you could in the Y. I was a camp counselor, a camp director. I was a sports coordinator. I was a referee. I worked the front desk and the weight room, and I cleaned the floor. So that Swiss Army knife is kind of a metaphor for my career at that Y. One of the things that kind of struck me is I had a really difficult experience as a youth playing sports. My father was really hard on me, made it kind of a miserable experience. We have a great relationship now, but back then when I had an opportunity to impact young people, I made a vow that any young person, any kid that I came in contact with or had an opportunity to lead would not have that same experience. So that's sort of driven me through the years to really create positive experiences and opportunities for young people through sports. That picture at the bottom right is actually the gymnasium. I probably spent half my life there in my college years. My father kept saying, "Why do you spend so much time at the Y? You should be in school. Why don't you go to school?" That Y, we ran big programs. We had 2,000 kids in basketball, 4,000 kids in soccer. So really taught me a lot of organizational skills and responsibility and an ability to work with volunteers and parents and in the community. So really a great foundation for what was to come. So in college, I actually had 3 jobs. So of course I worked at the Y. I worked at a 24-hour fitness because I needed something to do overnight, I guess. And then I was also a high school baseball coach. And one of the coaches I was with was a scout for the St. Louis Cardinals. So he put me in touch with some folks that landed me a job in the front office of the Portland Sea Dogs out in Portland, Maine. If anybody's been out there, it's absolutely gorgeous. But when I showed up in January, there was 6 feet of snow on the ground. And my first job was to not only build that 37-foot high wall to replicate the Green Monster at Fenway Park in Boston, if anybody's a baseball fan, but also get the 3 feet of hard packed snow off the field. So learning work ethic. A page turned when the season finally happened. They say summer's the best 2 weeks of the year in Maine, and we got some games in. And every baseball team does a promotion where you get a group of kids out onto the field where they can stand next to a player at a position and listen to the national anthem while the flag's up there. This is before the kneeling days, of course. And I had a group of kids and really just had a great time with them and doing activities. And, it just reminded me of the work I did in college. So I knew I had to get back into kid world and youth development. It wasn't so powerful for me selling fence signs and carpet cleaning contracts for the ball club. So it was time to get back to youth development. And for me, that meant the Y, which led me to Albany, New York. And that top right photo. That was how I got there. There was an opening for a program coordinator. And if anybody's driven through snow on the East Coast or anywhere, that's pretty much what it looks like and how far you can see. So I drove through the snow at night to show up to a building that was closed. Nobody was there except for one guy let me in. I told him I was there to apply for a job, and he said, "Okay, put your name, your information down and everything." And the next morning, the executive director comes in and says, "That guy drove through that blizzard to get here. Hire that guy." So I had a job, and that was my vocation. I can't believe I found this. Well, I'll start with the left. That picture there. My first day on the job, I met the woman who's eventually the love of my life. We didn't date while we were there, but you'll see more of her. She's out here with me now. I don't know if anybody's a baseball fan, but this is a quiz for you, Tom Barron. She always wore that shirt around, and I could never figure out what it meant. until we got to Yankee Stadium. So if you look closely enough, we made that whole thing work. I can't believe I found that picture to the bottom right of of some of the guys I used to work with in that Y. I had a buddy of mine when I was in college. I had an internship with the Colorado Rockies, the baseball team. There's a theme there. And his name was John Daniels, and I caught up with him later, and I said, "Hey, John, how you doing? What are you doing with your career these days?" And he goes, "I'm the GM of the Texas Rangers. I'm the general manager of the Texas Rangers." I said, "That's great, John. I'm the GM of the over 50 league at the Y. What do you think about that?" So we had a good laugh. Those guys had a great time with, and learned a lot about growing programs and making an impact, and know that the YMCA has the capacity to impact just about as many people as we want, and we really had a lot of success there. I met a gentleman there that was the aquatics director, so we were kind of peers in that building, and he had taken a job as the executive director of the big International Aquatics Center in Orlando. If anybody's been to Orlando, there's a YMCA on International Drive. That's all it is water. There's 1 million gallons of water there. He ran that. There's a big high dive, and he recommended me to a district vice president type that hired me in to be a senior program director. So I went from being a program director at the Y to now I was a senior program director. So that picture to the left, that was the crew. Out on Brevard County, we ran a Y next to the Kennedy Space Center. The guy to the far right, he was kind of my first real mentor in the Y, and that was really what I needed at the time, somebody to kind of show me how to develop a career. I remember standing out there because they have outdoor pools in Central Florida that they find the alligators in the bottom of them every once in a while. And this guy Jake says, "Hey, I'm standing there sweating my pants off in a cheap black suit with pinstripes." And he goes, "What do you want to do with your career?" I said, "Well, I think I'd like to be an executive director. I kind of like the lady that was the executive director of my Y in Albany." And he goes, "I'll make you an executive director." And lo and behold, he did. One of the fun things we used to do is the shuttle launches were visible from the Y out by the Kennedy Space Center. So we would take the kids out on the playground and they could watch the shuttles launch. I put the picture down to the right as a development story. One of the field trips we took as a camp director was to a zoo, but only it was a reptile zoo. And the way that you got into it was you walk through the mouth of a 300-foot alligator in the middle of a swamp. So I said, what am I in for today? Because I grew up in Colorado, and I have no patience and no desire to be around any kind of reptiles. But what else are you going to do in Central Florida but be around snakes? So the kids are hollering at me, and they're chanting, Aaron, they're getting after me to put a snake around my neck. So I conjured up a vision of this guy, Alice Cooper, and pulled it off. And that day I realized, the Y is here for the development of everybody. Whether you're a 4-year-old in swim lessons or you're a volunteer or a senior level staff member, it's about helping every single person reach their fullest potential. So I thought that was a really good lesson. The guy there on the right that I mentioned, he became the CEO of a Y in upstate Western New York. If anybody's ever been there, it's the coldest average temperature in the continental U.S. So I spent my days plowing the parking lot with a truck that looked just like that, because we had a lot of seniors that would come into the Y in the morning, and I didn't want them to have to walk through piles of snow to get to the front of the building. So that was my job. We did a good job there. It was kind of a turnaround situation in business, where we showed up and there was a lot of debt on the building. It was 2008 where the stock market crashed and everyone was having problems, and these colleges, and this was a YMCA that was a community college partnership, Jamestown Community College in New York. We'd entered into this variable interest rate bond, which meant that when the markets went south, that our interest rates went way up, and that really put a lot of pressure on the Y to be able to meet the needs of the community. So we did what we knew how to do. We had to make some tough decisions with staff and expenses and raise a lot of money and grow membership to make that thing a sustainable force in that small community. There's probably 8,500 folks that live in that community, and we had 6,000 of them were members of the Y. We were able to renegotiate that bond deal and really leave the Y in great position. I knew I didn't want to live in Olean, New York long term. I was a young single guy. You can sense kind of moving around, being a young single born to lose, we used to call it. We finished up our strategic plan after 3 years, and it was time to move on and advance my career. I actually met the gentleman that was a consultant. He helped in the YMCA movement. We have some independent consultants that help us with our work to determine what our opportunities might be in certain markets, help us do member surveys and those kind of things. And that gentleman ended up in Boston, Massachusetts. If you're faint of heart, you can look away at that, but that's a critical part of the story as well. He ended up as the head of all the Ys in Boston, working there right under the CEO. So a big YMCA. So he hired me in to run one of the YMCAs there, be an executive director, and that was my opportunity to really to prove it. You're probably wondering what the picture to the left is. I got lucky and had some headaches one day, and the doctors discovered a brain tumor. It was about the size of a cue ball or a billiard ball, and totally benign, but kind of a experience there, and had to go through some surgery. And I don't know how much smarter I am now. My father was hoping they would put brains back in. The doctor wasn't sure how he could do that or make me any smarter. But I think the lesson that I learned from that was those of us that have our health and that we're upright and mobile and can do things, we have an obligation and a responsibility to help other folks. More winter up to the right. And guess what? Ashley, I brought her with me. She came to Boston. We've been together ever since. And then the little one came along. Her name is Harper. She's starting kindergarten this week, trying to do it virtually. But they're great people, and I'm sure you guys will get a chance to meet them as well. So my work in Boston. So I'll kind of start with the picture on the left. We had 66 units of low-income housing for formerly homeless individuals, along with 22 units of shelter for families. In Massachusetts, it's unlawful for families to be homeless at any point. So I know, Diane, you can relate to that with the work that you do. We did some great work there. That YMCA on the top right, that's where I work. That's the first YMCA in America. Big building, the first building on the block there, built in 1912. The President of the United States laid the cornerstone for the Y. That's pretty cool to talk about. And all those windows up top, those are the ones that we were providing housing for the community. We really did some great work in Boston, worked under some outstanding leadership. I built 2 boards for YMCA. You'd think nonprofit, when you come into one of the oldest ones in the country, that they have a legacy that's firmly established and longtime donors and supporters and folks who have been engaged with the organization for a long time. And here it just wasn't the case. So my job was to really start from scratch and build and grow that support. And I think we did a great job with that. That picture to the bottom right, actually we did a good enough job. In Boston, they have this saying where, if you're doing good work or you're respected in the community, then you're the mayor. Everybody's the mayor. So you get to be the mayor. So I got to be the mayor for the day. And that's actually the mayor of Boston. We won the Boston Business of the Year award. So I got a chance to file that away. And I thought that was a really cool thing. I worked under a CEO who is actually the CEO of YUSA now. So that chartering arm, if it kind of gives you an idea of how the YMCAs are, all the YMCAs are independent from each other. And then we have one chartering independent organization that all our institutions pay dues to, called YUSA. We all kind of work together. So it's not a corporation. It's more of a federated nonprofit, and really just exciting work. I learned from Kevin, the CEO, that you need to take that Y to a higher place than you found it. And I feel like we definitely did that. We were able to double membership and double programs, and and people engage with our mission, which is really what it's all about. So coincidentally, the gentleman that had tipped me off to the opportunity in Boston, he ended up in the greater metropolitan Los Angeles Y. And he gave me a call, I think it was last December, and he said, hey, we have an executive director, an awesome lady named Ann Sampson, who you all know. She's retiring. And I think you might be interested in interviewing with the board. So I had an opportunity to meet the folks, and several of them are involved with the Rotary Club and just phenomenal people. So I thought it was a perfect fit right away. This YMCA is absolutely amazing, as you guys have heard about over the years. To the left there, that's our Camp Whittle program. I don't know if Scott Whittle's on this call, but it's in my 23 years of YMCA work, that is the most powerful sleepaway camp experience that I've ever been a part of. That's me, and we call her Smalls, and then our little buggy to the right taking a big old bite out of an apple. You've all heard of our signature programs with our Plus program for folks with Parkinson's, our Youth and Government program, and on and on. It's really just amazing work being carried out by this Y. To the right, that's a couple of our board members. Kathy is Jim Collins' daughter, and she's very active and does an awesome job on our board. And really, we've got a lot to accomplish. Once we get through this whole pandemic thing, we need to, grow our membership and the amount of people that we serve and impact. We've got to keep the board vital, much like the Rotary board here. And then we need to continue to meet the needs of the community through programs and philanthropy. A lot of you have heard we, had to make a shift here in the last 5 or 6 months to really, do things that are going to help people, help meet people's needs in this state of emergency. So we've got showers going on downstairs for people experiencing homelessness. We've got food distribution happening every Thursday. We're doing blood drives all the time, and really everything that the community needs in order to be able to, stay afloat and make it through this whole thing. So I'll say coming here was the best decision me and my family ever made. We bought a condo down there in Playa del Rey a couple weeks ago, and we're loving it and just loving to be a part of everything. Last thing I'll just kind of share with you, my personal mission is to impact others, to impact others. And if anybody's ever heard this, the YMCA movement was started in 1844 in London by a guy named George Williams. He was 22 years old. 22 years old when he gathered a group of folks that were kind of filtering into the cities, and he wanted to get people away from the temptations of liquor and women and crime and problems. So he got people together and said, hey, we need to do things right, and we need to live longer. That led to Thomas Sullivan. Captain Thomas Sullivan started the first YMCA in Boston, Massachusetts. So he influenced Captain Sullivan, who started the first Y. And now look at our movement across the country. We've got 3,000 or so communities that we're in, and over 900 associations of Ys. We've got a Nobel Peace Prize on our resume for the Y, John R. Mott in 1946. So I think that's pretty cool to say. I was part of a retirement party. One of our line officers, our senior staff for the YMCA of Metropolitan LA, she's been talking about it for a while, but she hung it up after 35 or 36 years. And the thing that struck me is we had probably 75 people on the call, and every single person had something to say about how this woman, Sue Marasco, had impacted their lives. So I just thought that was really cool. And I think, the idea is that we grow leadership and we impact others in a positive way so that they can impact other people. I really appreciate you guys giving me a few minutes to share my story today. I hope I didn't miss anything. At least I told you all the good stuff, no dirt. So if anybody has any questions, I'd love to engage with you guys for a few.
Nice job.
Tell us about your homeless program.
What's that, Richard?
The homeless program.
Okay, the one we did in Boston.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I'll go back a little bit. Oops. So we had, so it was the Huntington Avenue Y. It was America's first YMCA. And it was built in the beginning to accommodate classrooms. So all those rooms there, and then over time, as housing fluctuates and as as the need is, and obviously right now Boston is in a very similar situation to Los Angeles in that there's just not enough housing. And in Boston, it's more of a geographical issue where the city's square mileage isn't that big, and folks just aren't building fast enough. So at this moment in time, it's really meeting the needs of the community. So we had two kind of slices of the housing crisis that we were attacking with, and by leveraging our facility there. So the first program is the 66 units of low-income housing. So that operates as a Section 8 program. So folks need to qualify by being homeless at one point. So they're homeless right before they move in there. And there's always a challenge with those guys because, we needed to keep those rooms populated with folks in order to, one, serve the needs of the community and make sure that people are being helped, because the numbers just are so much bigger than what we can possibly carry in that building, but also to cover our expenses and make sure that we're doing things right. But always a fight to get people to, to get folks through the morass of city paperwork and red tape to get folks actually moved in and qualified. But there's no limit to the amount of folks that stay in that housing. There's a couple guys up there that have been living there for 50 or 60 years, and they're part of the Y. They all get memberships to the Y. They're part of our community there. And we also have 22 units of family shelter. So as I mentioned, it's unlawful in Massachusetts for a family to be homeless at any point. Just for numbers' sake, there's about 8,000 documented homeless families in the state of Massachusetts. 5,000 of them have actual shelter over their heads. So you can see there's a constant problem there. Our program, I think, was started about 30 years ago, early 80s, and actually the gentleman on the left is our housing director in that picture there. And I always like to say it when he's around, but he revolutionized the way we approach housing or shelter work is, so he had a few case managers that worked with him. And the thing was that we always said is we didn't treat homelessness as the central problem. There's many other factors that lead people to our doorstep. We had folks that were victims of domestic violence. We had a few that were, involved with substance abuse. We had others that, just were evicted for whatever reason. It's the same as LA here, where, if there's not enough homes, you're going to see some of the most vulnerable folks that are needing housing. So that program was funded in addition to our philanthropic work at the Y, also through a contract with the state. So there was a state government contract that helped us, pay the staff and keep the lights on in the building and keep everything upright. And I want to say, compared to some of the other shelters that I witnessed around the state, the group there did a really good job. We would have our dinners and engage folks, and it's all about relationships and helping folks. And every once in a while, my housing director David would come into the office. He's a great story too. He was formerly homeless himself. He had a tough upbringing. He ended up in prison for 15 years, and he got his degree behind bars. Got out, showed up at the doorsteps of the Y, and he's been working there ever since. And when I got there, I felt it was my obligation to start giving him raises. Don't tell him I said that, but he's been doing a great job there. But his approach is, hey, and I'd have to talk him down a little bit sometimes and say, hey, David, even if folks are giving you a hard time or they're not engaging with things, where everybody has a starting point, and the folks that are coming to us are families. There are a lot of times they're young single moms, some single dads, some we call them intact families if there was a mom and a dad there. But everybody has a starting point, and it's our job to get them to advance to the next point. Typical stay is 12 months. They have anywhere from 12 months to anywhere from the time they found housing to 2 years. But our folks were working around the clock to help folks get Social Security, debt cleared up, bills, education. The Y there is on Northeastern University's campus. Actually, the Northeastern University was started in the Y, as an aside. I had to teach a lot of people that, but it was our obligation to take folks from where they are, get them into permanent housing. So in essence, if the rooms upstairs at the Y had enough space in them, they're all single room occupancy, but if they had enough space in those rooms, we could technically move a family into one of those rooms if we needed to find family housing. So David's job was to have relationships with housing developers and folks that had a portion of their property dedicated to low-income housing, so that our folks that were awarded Section 8 vouchers or any other type of housing certificate, that we could move them right in. And we took them all the way through the process, and really we kept those relationships up for a year plus 2 years, sometimes 10 or 15 years afterward, just to make sure that folks have the support that they need and they're being successful. Last thing I'll share with you guys is that we were really proud of our 98%, we call it retention rate. So if we moved someone into permanent housing from that shelter program, 4 years later, 98% of the time, that person was still in that home or still successful in a permanent home. And we really sang that from the rooftops, and we're really proud of that. So hopefully that answers your question about.
That really said it all. We're so happy to have you and your expertise working with us here.
Well, Phil, I see that Phil has a question.
Aaron, I spent a good part of my youth at the Westside YMCA over in LaGrange, Camp Whittle, basketball, coaching, just everything. Cool. And we're really excited about the new YMCA. Is it fully open to members for the pool and the weight room? And what's the situation for members who want to use the YMCA now?
Well, great question, Phil. And we're as waiting as any institution right now. We went through the pandemic like everyone did. We're still in it. When we were asked to close our doors by the health department and state government back in March. So our doors have been closed to members, and a lot of the programs that you would think that camp and all those things that you just mentioned, we had to cancel Camp Whittle this year, Phil, for the first time.
Oh my God!
How anybody can remember? It's just really been crazy. We were able to engage kids through a virtual camp program, and we did a mailer. We've got a really great volunteer camp director team, but our doors are closed. We opened them for about 3 weeks back on June 22nd. Remember, it's like it was yesterday. And then when the numbers spiked and everybody kind of read, hey, this is, California is sort of going crazy right now. The governor asked us to close our doors again, and we've been closed ever since. But again, like we say, our doors may be closed, but our hearts are open, and we're doing all these other things to help support the community. But we're real hopeful that the trend of the last week or so continues, and we get word that, hey, we can open up to membership a little bit. We have been doing some outdoor group exercise classes. They haven't been terribly populated, but folks are coming. Outdoors has been something that we've been given the thumbs up to do. So all I can say is little by little, and we're going to keep plugging away until we can be fully open again.
Yeah, closing Camp Whittle, that's a huge blow, because I know a lot of kids, that'd be the only experience they ever get outdoors, and that must have been a blow to everyone in the community.
Yeah, it was really tough. We've got a board here and really a legacy with that camp that's just beyond imagination. And our hope is to keep everyone engaged and keep kids engaged. But like you said, just a transformational experience that we were able to do this year. But hopefully again soon.
Aaron.
Hey, Ron.
Hey, do you have time for any avocations?
Define that.
What do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun?
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, these days there's a lot of playing with my little one. But in regular times, I like to fish and ski and get out in the water, experiencing living next to the ocean for the first time, and when there's concerts happening, albeit some of those, but really just kind of having fun in a cardboard box right now. But work is fun too, Ron.
I heard that.
Aaron, thank you so much for a fascinating and really delightful presentation. It's wonderful to learn more about you, but it's also inspiring to see the work that you've been involved with pretty much your whole adult life.
Yep.
That's very, very impressive. And we're, as someone said earlier, I'll echo that sentiment. We're very happy to have you with us.
Well, happy to be part of the club and the team here, and hopefully I did okay.
So that will end our meeting. And I've asked the board members to stay on for an extra 10 or 15 minutes because we have a couple of items to vote on. And look forward to seeing everybody else back here next Thursday, same time, same place. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Nancy. Very good.
Let's see, now I am going to share my screen again.
Are we giving him a gift for the library?
Okay. Oh, John made it, yay. Okay. Well, I know it's a minute or two early, but we'll welcome the extra time. Whoops, sorry. And then for the board, as I explained in the email message, we're getting ready for the district governor's visit, which will be held on September 24th. And we have a couple of things to vote on. Steve, why don't you go first, if you would like to, even though I put you second for no particular reason. You're on mute.
There we go.
Yeah.
Sure. You reached out to me and told me that the chief of staff for the district governor was hoping that we could make some Paul Harris presentations during her district governor visit on September 24th. I mentioned to you that we have currently 4 members of our club who are not Paul Harris Fellows, and 3 of which are active in charitable work, nonprofit work. Carol is involved. Carol Rosenstein's involved with Music Men's Minds. Esther Leon's a rabbi, and as we know, Aaron, based on his wonderful craft talk, what he's doing with the Wise, the executive director. I've talked to each of them in the past about becoming Paul Harris Fellows, and not to get too much into it, but each was reticent due to their own personal situation to become Paul Harris Fellows. And I thought to myself, they've all done great things. We know a lot about what Carol's done, and we know a little bit about Esther Leon, and we know now a lot more about Aaron. And I proposed to Nancy, because since we have the club has a lot of recognition points, over 57,000 recognition points, that maybe we want to use 1,000 points for each of these individuals, and the club can make them Paul Harris Fellows. And we can make those presentations to the 3 of them on September 24th when the district governor is here. I mentioned that I think this would require board approval because we're using, if you will, an asset of the club, its points, to make these, to designate to these individuals to make them Paul Harris Fellows. So that was what I proposed to Nancy.
And what better use would there be for points?
Can I make a motion?
Nancy had a question, Phil.
I didn't have a question. I just said on what better use.
Oh, I got you. Okay, I didn't hear. Okay.
So do we need a motion? Can I make a motion?
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we use the points, whatever it is, 1,000 for each person, to make them Paul Harris Fellows. All in favor?
We need a second.
Second, sorry.
And then, okay, wait, I've got a question.
Yes.
Sorry. Did anyone talk to Esther Leone to see if she was going to stay on in the club?
I have spoken to her. It was a few weeks ago, and I can talk to her again before September 24th, but she had told me she loves the club. She's just going through a difficult time financially. So we have to set the wheels in motion because of the lead time involved in getting the certificates done. But I'm happy to follow up with her again, but she left no doubt in my mind that she had planned to stay.
Well,
Harry?
Sorry?
I was going to ask you, is she paid up?
No, she's still delinquent in her account. And I was going to ask one other thing, Nancy, and
Yes.
You may not have asked her, but irrespective of the fact that she's having some financial issues, or that's what I inferred from your comment, why can't she join our meetings?
That's a fair question. I did not ask her that.
I mean, maybe it's I mean, we have a couple of other members who have technological challenges and so forth, and that's fine. But, you know, I think that she needs to, it would be desirable, I should say it differently, it would be desirable for her to participate.
Well, I'll tell you what, I will give her another call about joining the meeting. And I will be able to tell at the same time if she has changed her feelings about being part of the club. But if it's a technology issue, then I'm sure there's a way to help her.
Well, or not, I mean, as the case may be, but it would at least be understandable as opposed to a lack of interest.
Understood.
May I ask one other question that may or may not be relevant at the point of this motion? Clearly, it wouldn't change my vote or anything like that. But Steve, you mentioned we still have one other member that is not a Paul Harris Fellow. Can you share with the board who that is?
Oh, sure, yeah. Show. He's he's committed in the past. It's in my court to bring that home, but I'll be able to do that. I'm going to be emailing him. He's with the matches that we get from the club matches, 400, the Gandy Foundation or Trust 300, shows at 260. So I'm sure he bought a raffle books last year. I hope he will this year to bring him over the top, and then I'll get a check from Mike, and Nancy can sign off on the points, and so we should be able to make him a Paul Harris Fellow too.
Okay, well that's terrific, because and especially what you just said makes it even more terrific, because I think Nancy and Steve, it would be really terrific if we could induct all four of them at the same time.
Yes.
And bring ourselves back up to being 100% Paul Harris Club. I assume that's where we're headed, Steve.
Yes, exactly.
So,
and also just
hard.
coincidental, and we never gave Ellen Horowitz we never made the presentation to her. For one reason or another, it just never happened. So I'm hoping that we can encourage Ellen to be on the call on the 24th as well. And so we can make her presentation. She's already a Paul Harris Fellow. We just haven't given her.
Steve,
yes.
Can I amend my motion then?
You can do it, sure. I mean, Diane or Nancy, can Phil?
What is your thought, Phil, about what you would
I'd like to approve the two before, but the third one, the one that we're not sure about, contingent upon her wanting to stay a member.
I think that's a great idea, Phil.
All right, that's fair.
I would agree. I think that, yeah.
Is there a second to my friendly amendment?
I will second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Don't vote.
And Tom Barron already gave me his vote. So, Allie, I can't see you. Are you voting?
I don't know if she's on.
Oh, okay, because her name is still on the screen.
May I suggest that the minutes, with due respect, Aaron, may I suggest that the minutes reflect that Aaron abstained?
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Terry.
Yeah.
Can you check the chat box? You're a chat box.
Okay.
Dave, can you give a little background on what it means to be a Paul Harris? for Aaron, so Aaron understands?
Oh, sure. Well, Paul Harris, as we all know, is the individual who started Rotary 115 years ago in Chicago. He was instrumental in growing Rotary from first just the Chicago club to clubs throughout the United States and worldwide. People, as a way to acknowledge his contribution to Rotary and to the overall community, and I think it was Arch Klump I don't remember the exact year, maybe the 20s, to acknowledge his contribution to Rotary, started a program called the Paul Harris Fellow. And interestingly, inflation has never affected it. And it was started that when a member gave $1,000 or was acknowledged, and others, if you will, gave $1,000 in that person's name, the person would become a Paul Harris Fellow. The club over the years has, has given money through the Westwood Village Rotary Foundation, and we've been acknowledged, the club has, with recognition points. Individuals also have recognition points for the monies that they've put into the club over the years as well. But the club has like 56,000 recognition points, representing $56,000 or $57,000 of money that was actually given to the foundation in the name of Westwood Village Rotary Club, via its foundation. The money that's used by the foundation is used throughout the world, here in the United States, as well as throughout the world, to alleviate hunger, provide education, to provide relief during, storms or earthquakes or whatever. So the money is gathered by the Rotary Foundation, and it's a very highly regarded foundation. Has GuideStar has high rating for it. More than 90% of the money is used towards programs. So it's a wonderful organization. We as a club over the years have designated members, have designated people in the community, have designated Rotaractors to be recipients of a Paul Harris Fellow, representing their contribution to the community in however way they've done it. I think the three people that we're talking about have given to the community, their community in very significant ways. So it's very, very appropriate. And it means a lot for us to be able to do it. And I know that the recipients are all very proud of the acknowledgement that has been made on their behalf.
Wow. Great. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Nancy, I have got to run. I'm late for a meeting already. So can I make the motion that we approve the $1,000 to be made to the Rotary Foundation in the district governor's name?
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nancy, I would like to, I'm in favor of it, and I think it just passed, but I would like to ask a question, but to allow Diane to drop off if she needs to. Did you investigate, is this something that the district governor would desire for us to do without any designation?
Yes, and thank you. I had actually intended to go into that quickly, which is that I've been in fairly frequent touch with the district governor's chief of staff and with Sally Goya, who is the assistant district governor for service, about preparing for the meeting. And they let me know that it's a tradition for clubs to make a donation to something in the district governor's name. I then contacted each of them for more information. They said her absolute favorite cause is the foundation.
Great.
I also asked about Polio Plus because that's something that she's going to get behind in a big way. And they said, well, that would be fine too, but they felt that she would prefer the foundation, both because it's broader and also because that money comes back to the district, to the district, I believe it's in 3 years, or to the club, I think it's in 3 years. So they said that she would be very appreciative of the donation to the foundation. I looked in our records, and we have in the past made donations in the governor's name in the amount of $1,000. So I'm proposing the same amount.
Yeah, this is very consistent. It's just my only question was, is this the right charity? And
yeah, they were adamant that this is her favorite. This would be her number one.
Perfect. I also add, well, Diane's not taking the minutes anymore, but this is actually a donation from the foundation, and we will need to make sure that it's reflected at some point in foundation board of trustees minutes as well, but it'll be non-controversial. We'll have to decide whose avenue of service budget it comes out of. Sorry, chairs, but it's got to be picked somewhere.
Understood.
And probably international is typically where we put Rotary Foundation contributions.
Okay. Well, so we'll figure that out, and then we'll talk about that.
Right.
Thank you all for your time, for staying on. Nevin, it's lovely to see you from however many thousands of miles away. Bless you for taking the time to join us. What time is it for you? About midnight or 11:30? Oh, that
11:30 almost. I mean, 10-hour difference. So I'm going to sleep.
Yes, I love this. We have one member from Turkey and one member from Arkansas. What a board.
I can't believe it.
So thank you all very much. Nevin, I'm going to be in touch with you.
Yes,
everybody
we will
have
talk.
a great week.
Nancy?
Yes.
Nancy, I'm going to be sending you, I'll email you the forms that you need to sign so that I can then forward that on to the Rotary International. Yeah, so I'm going to prepare all three of them, and I'll just hold back on Esther Leone until I hear from you.
Yeah, I will call her right away.
Oh, okay.
Steve, do we need Nancy's signature to get the points for show? Should we put that on the same?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll do this. I'll do shows as well. Good.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry. Yeah.
Right.
Very good.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great
Bye.
week. Talk to you.
Bye.
Soon. Let's see. Stop share. And here's chat. What does the chat say? Yes. Oh, thank you, Marcia.